All right, Youest, you listeners, let me just tell you something. You, I have met a soul sister here, and I am beyond excited for you to get to meet Jaime Masters. I got to tell you, in our conversation beforehand, we were just joking. My cheeks are hurting. This is my gauge. My cheeks are hurting, which means just be ready. Be ready. You might want tissues. I don't know. Just, you're going to want a notepad. Like, she is just full of wisdom, of wit, and just such a sweetheart, big-hearted, beautiful, powerful woman. So I'm going to give you a little more detail so I can intro Jaime appropriately, but I wanted you to know you're in for such a treat today. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for tuning in. Let me tell you about Jaime. Jaime Masters is the CEO of Eventual Millionaire, a business mentoring company. Jaime specializes in creating automated systems and doubling her clients' revenue. She works with online and offline business owners and entrepreneurs for masterminds, groups, and one-on-one private coaching to level up their business. Jaime is the author of Eventual Millionaire and a top business coach who is known for getting amazing rock solid results. She, over the past 10 years, has taught 6- and 7-figure CEOs, entrepreneurs, and small business owners how to optimize every area of their business. Jaime genuinely cares about helping others and loves watching her clients' businesses grow. Jaime is also the producer and host of her own online show and has conducted over 500 interviews, oh my goodness, with millionaires and billionaires. And she has been featured in Yahoo Online, Success Magazine, Entrepreneur, Women's Health Magazine, and Business Insider. Jaime loves business and all things geeky. She's a mama of 2 amazing kiddos that are already making money in business as stilt walkers and contortionists. Yeah, that is pretty amazing. And I got to tell you, you are just so oozing heart and love. I am so excited to have you here. I feel like you're a new friend. Thank you for being here today, Jaime.
Thank you. It's so awkward listening to my whole bio going, oh, that sounds great. Thank you for having me. Yeah, you're amazing already.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Well, there's like a lot of pieces to dive into, but I think, one thing that I think is helpful for people to know, because it's like, all right, you're doing all of these incredible things, but maybe you can tell us a little bit of your backstory. And I know it's like, all right, tell us about your life could be like too big of a question, but maybe some of the pivots or things that you've gone through to help you really get to where you are now. It could have been a dark moment. It could have been a breakdown. I think it's helpful to hear, like, it wasn't probably, I'm guessing, always where you were doing this amazing work. I don't know.
I was from birth. I was absolutely amazing. That's exactly what's so funny is that
true.
I wrote my list right before this of my catalyst moments. So it's kind of funny that that's what you asked me as the first one, even though my handwriting is chicken scratch. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I won't go so far back, but there's these pivotal moments that where I had to get kicked in order to do something because I'm a very stubborn person overall, right? And so when I was younger, and I know you mentioned that a lot of your audience are overachievers, I was like, achievement means worth, and I'm going to go crazy. Right. So I've got all the accolades, like even you read my bio, right? I got my first house when I was 19. I moved out when I was 17. Like I got this. And then I made my first 6 figures at age 22. And then at 24, I ended up being like, well, I kind of hate my life though. So that sucks, right? Like you go after the money, you go after the stuff. Outside, very successful. I mean, I know this is exactly your story also, right? Outside, it looks great. Inside, horror. No.
That's right.
But being able to have the catalyst. So when my son was born, I couldn't do it on my own. I couldn't leave that job on my own. But when my son was born, I used to travel for work constantly and gained a bunch of weight doing that also, which is also funny. And so when we look at what actually got me out of my comfort zone to do this, it was actually having my son and realizing that I couldn't do this field job. I was an engineer and a project manager for a video on demand company, right? Which sounded cool. I had an expense account. Everybody, I had a $250,000 house at the time. And realizing that sucked. And having the idea of going, hey, because I wanted to be a millionaire since I was 8. It's in my book. I was like, I'm going to make it myself. My mom's like, marry a rich man. Like, no. So when I got to 24 and realized like money is not really exactly what it's about, it really took a long time, sort of a quarter life crisis, trying to figure out what the heck I actually cared about, because school doesn't teach you that. I was an art major before I switched to computers, which is the
Wow.
exact opposite, right? And so I went after the money, and having that sort of time and introspection, and realizing that I didn't even know what my intuition was saying. I didn't even listen to it. Those words were not even part of my vocabulary, because it was all about data and numbers and logic and planning. And it was just an eye-opening moment. And so, number one, don't quit your day job when you don't have anything to have a backup plan, just as a side note. Because we'd paid off $70,000 in debt, but I had no way of making money also, and a brand new colicky baby. So that was fun, but that was quite a few years ago. And so to see the difference of 10 years from where I've come now, and being online business, it's kind of insane. There's been a bunch of slaps in the face there also, by finding a mentor and getting through that. But I'm trying to get better in my older age to not need the kicks or the slaps that are so huge in order for me to actually listen to what I really want. So, but again, not great at it yet. Still have pieces of that hyperachiever, because that's how I was bred by the society that we're in, which sounds like a lot of your listeners were also.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I love what you said. Well, and first of all, it's like, there's a piece to lean into there. And then you started to talk when I was really curious about, like, I didn't even know my intuition. I hadn't really spent a whole lot of time there. And so, I'm managing myself. This happens to me where I get flooded with questions, or I can hear people like, ask her this, ask this. But of course, my ears perk, because a lot of what we talk about here in being your Youest you is about tuning into that higher guidance, that part of you that, achievement, like if you're in alignment with your intuition, achievement following that is a whole different thing. And so, curious about how you started to tune into your intuition, what that's looked like, how you do that. If you don't mind, I'm really
Of
curious.
course.
I
Well,
want to know.
and the only reason why I started meditating, because number one, science said it was good, but number two, my kids were so colicky. I was like, I was going a little insane. And so it was sort of trying to go into myself because of that. But it's a bit of a long story. I mean, codependency in my past, and still working on it to this day. There's a lot of shoving down of everything for my entire life, which is super fun. And realizing that I have to actually let all those other preconceived notions go in order to do that. So I've had many intuition coaches. I've done ayahuasca. I'm a tester of everything, I say.
Love it.
And now it's a hardcore meditation practice where I have to be completely silent for a long period of time, typically, before I can really distinguish what's my head, because my head is just so smart, so it thinks, right? Versus my heart. And again, lots and lots of daily practice to try and get better. And coaches and other people, unfortunately, it has not been a linear path, which is what my head really, really wants. And to tell people this, it's so hard if you are so logical to sort of get out of the linear path side of things, because that's what we're told how it's supposed to be.
Totally. I almost said I love you, which I feel like I do already, which is okay. I know. I'm like, I just love this lady. I love you. And I love what you're saying. This to me is part of the healing that I think is happening on this planet. Should we be awake and aware enough to dare to get that silent? And I know you listening, because I've heard from you, and I know I'm like this too. It's when you come from that overachiever, like the mind, it just has a lot to say. I'm with you. It's so fascinating, because I've done a lot of guided too. It's like, really giving yourself like real time and honoring that time, and being, feeling worthy enough to give yourself, maybe it's 45 minutes, 30 minutes, hour of silence, of silence there to really just, to allow for something to shift. What I was hearing you even say is it like has helped you to go from, I think it's 18 inches, they say, from like the head to the heart, but like those 18 inches are the most important 18 inches to get to like move from, I think.
And I think I went millimeter by millimeter is how I sort of, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I definitely with my schedule do not do 45 minutes or an hour every single day, because life, but I do have a I was actually just redoing my whole meditation space, and I bring everybody in it. Cause again, hardcore business coach, data. And then I bring people, it's like in the back of my closet. So half of my closet, I don't have very many clothes. One side is costumes, one side is clothes. And all my girlfriends are like, this is so many clothes. I was like, well, I don't really. And then the whole meditation space, which has a tree in it and lighting and all this craziness.
Oh,
and I love making meditation spaces for friends just because it's so important, especially as a mom, to be able to have your own space where you can shut the door, right? Regardless of the children, they'll be okay for a little while. And giving myself permission, especially back then, to be able to have that space was hard. My best friend, I was chatting with her. She's been my best friend since we were babies. And she's in that space. She has twin boys that are 7. And she's like, where's my space? And we're talking about where to put her meditation area, because we all need our own space. It's very difficult to be in the chaos of what life as a mom, business owner, and everything else is without just sort of carving out your own sacred space, which I know you know.
Oh yeah, I'm like, amen, sister. No, it's so, I love the tree. I'm like, ooh, maybe we can have pictures in the.
I have 2 trees in my house. I have an altar on the fireplace. Yeah, I have a thing for trees. Yeah.
Oh, take some photos. You guys, I know I can hear it. I want to see it. So maybe we'll get photos from you, Jaime.
Now that I've just cleaned it, yes, now you can see it.
Yeah, now that it's picture ready. I would love to talk, when I'm really being intuitively guided to you, what you do around this eventual millionaire, the idea around money and worthiness. And I love, love, love as a female, especially, that you're the one talking about this, that you're the one helping others to create this. There's a lot of healing to be done around our beliefs and feelings around money. I think it can seem, especially if you're just starting a business, it can seem elusive. Like, how do you get to 6 figures or 7 figures? And then I'm curious, I'm like, Julie, manage yourself, but there's a lot here to unpack. And maybe just to talk about, like, one of the questions is, what are you noticing are some of those threads or similar traits of people that have maybe even allowed themselves, because you do this, all things like becoming that kind of bringing in that kind of prosperity. To me, I'm curious, like, just download, Jaime, what have you learned?
I
What
have
do you
so many
teach?
things to say.
Yeah, I know. I need more paper. I'm going to get some as you talk.
I joke. It's always like, okay, Jamie's soapbox moment. All right, ready? Watch out. Yeah. So,
go for it.
Because there's sort of 2 tracks. There's what I went through and then what I found. So I'll go through sort of a little bit about what I've gone through pieces and then sort of the threads that I've pulled.
Yes.
Because there's so many similarities. I mean, 500 millionaire interviews, and I ask all the questions like you. They're like flooding. I'll stay on forever. Most of them are friends now, which is amazing. But I just remember my family, they don't have a lot of money.
Yep.
My dad would say money doesn't grow on trees. And
Yep.
I would take the leaf and be like, yeah, this is pretend money. And I thought it was hilarious when I was little. And so even when I started coaching, even though I made 6 figures back in corporate, I couldn't charge somebody $25 a month when I first started coaching. And now I'm $2,500 an hour. And so the stretch of who I have become over the long, I mean, it wasn't immediate for sure, is takes a while. So the ability to go back and do these interviews with millionaires, it's really easy for me to sort of get a snapshot of where they are now. But as you know, as an interviewer, you're like, I get a snapshot of the best parts. I mean, even when I ask about the failures, it's like, well, it's over now. So the pain is not palpable, right? But when you're in it, totally different. And so what I found with a lot, and I'm grateful because there's patterns that come up over and over, especially about how money and unfulfillment is still very controversial, right? We're like, oh, money equals fulfillment, which is, as I've interviewed way too many, not true at all. They call it the millionaire myth, right? And so the point of Eventual Millionaire is actually about life first and then money. I was not happy doing that job. And so I went, I don't even care if I make any money. I just want to actually do something that doesn't suck, right? My coworker back in the day, I was in cable TV, and she's like, Jaime, why are you so stressed? We're not curing cancer here. This is cable TV. And I'm like, valid point. This is, yeah, why? And I kept thinking, if I died, I would really appreciate what I did. Right? If I had $1 million at my deathbed and had a horrible life, who really cares? If I didn't have $1 million, but I had a great life, that's what matters more. And so when I actually talk to millionaires, they have a lot of that realization also, usually on the journey, because business, along with children, I think are the best evolutionary tactics for awakening ever, right?
Yeah.
Whew, you get to see
Oh, yeah.
yourself up close and personal. And so usually that's sort of the navigation that people talk about. So while some of them are sort of untangling, I say it's like a spider web that's all tangled up in it's all sticky and you're trying to sort of pull a thread out at a time, untangling how they feel about money. Most of them started off as overachievers and feeling crappy and just wanting some more choice, which again, there are assets to that. And there are detriments because they work their butts off, potential burnout, all sorts of other things, and then still aren't happy when they hit those specific numbers. So I love the quote, and I can't remember who says it. It's the person that you'll become on the way to making the money that matters more than anything. You know, the people that lose it. I've interviewed so many people that have gone bankrupt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Susie Batiste from Poopery, which
Oh,
I
yeah,
know
I love
everybody
her.
knows.
Yeah.
She's been bankrupt before too. So, hey, like there's so many.
Wow.
And so like you're saying, it's sort of that prosperity feel. Once you have it, even if you lose it, it's easier to get back because you know you've done it beforehand too. And so it's different for every person, and it's sort of again, a winding navigation, but the pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is something that is common among all millionaires. They wouldn't have been able to do that without actually getting to that edge and pushing farther and learning more and that growth side of things. Does that all make sense?
Love it. Yeah. I'm like, keep going. I think I actually want to ask you about this prosperity feel. I love Susie Batiste. I saw her speak in New York City about a year ago and just loved her, had her big hat on. She's awesome. Such a great energy. And I don't remember, maybe she did share that, but like, it sounds to me, I've heard this before. It's like, once you know that it's possible, you can go bankrupt and come back again. And I'd love to like that prosperity feel, that ability to feel there's got to be something that you notice that there's a knowingness, a worthiness, something. And I'd love to like dive into that because I can hear those that are like, I want to create that. And, you know, we're not saying it's going to definitely buy happiness. I just look at it as, you know, I'd like to be, you know, be your best, highest self and have money, like be a
Totally.
kind, generous person and have money because then you have choices. You have lots of choices.
Because
like
why
said.
not? Yeah, we live here in this earth right now. You might as well have it all.
You might, like do it. We got a short period, like why not? But what have you noticed with that, the prosperity feel? I love that wording that you used.
So it's really interesting. And I found the perspective shift. So when you hang out and beforehand, when I first started interviewing millionaires, which is 10 years ago now, which is kind of crazy, I used to put everybody on a pedestal that they know something different, are different, have something that, you know, sets them apart.
Yeah.
That's not true at all. In my opinion, they have horrible spelling mistakes also. So that makes me feel better in so many ways. I remember being like, how did this person do that? I'm very confused. They seem nice, but right. And so what's really interesting though, is the perspective on using the value of money for investment, number one, but also that a penny, I liken this to my children because I used to joke that it's like a person that thinks a penny is worth a lot of money, right? Versus $1 versus $10 versus $100 versus $1,000. The person that has a lot more money, $1,000 is money, but it's not, it's $10 to them. And if you can sort of jump to that timeline and actually feel that, which again, difficult affirmation. If you're really far from that gap, it makes it very difficult, but whatever you can do to start getting yourself to that point makes a huge difference. And I've had to have people call me out on it. Cause like, I'm sure, you know, people in general are like, raise your prices. It's like, it's hard to just make yourself do stuff like that. Even millionaires, they're like, it's so hard to sort of wrap my head around what this is. But it just takes time getting outside of your comfort zone and the adjustment period of doing that. And that's where I want people to sort of recalibrate to, because if they can, even if they raise their prices and it doesn't do exactly what they wanted, but they keep it and they keep moving forward, they'll eventually adjust. Every time I've had sort of a level up, I'm like, okay, now I'm here. Right. And it's hard to sort of go back to be like, no, I feel like I'm totally worth $2,500 an hour, even if I had no clients right now at all, even though we all should feel that anyway. Right. But getting there is a process. And so what I found is with them also, it's incremental and it's not this big old jump. That's why when lottery winners get it, they sort of lose it, because that shift hasn't really, that jump is too fast for them to recalibrate to. But the ability, especially as a business owner, to invest and see what you get back and move forward. I've helped so many people become millionaires in their business. And it's net worth millionaire, not just business 7 figures, because that's very different. You can totally have high expenses and make $1 million. And that's,
I was going to say, very different. Yeah.
Very, very different. But what changes as a person, they don't focus on money as much either, right? They're like, oh, have that piece. Now what? It's more about things that fulfill them, or about systems and time and, their stress levels and that sort of stuff as they get farther and farther down that path. Does that make sense too?
So great. Yeah. And I love the beginning of the debunking that there's something different or special. Like, I mean, we're all human, right? And so, what I'm hearing too, because I think there are many in the audience that are either starting their business, have their business, or just want to maybe a side gig of something that they want to do to bring in more money. And first of all, that you said, it's like, you got to get that feeling about it. So getting that, like $1,000 would be like $10, like feeling what that would be like. And I loved also just it feels like kind of a mindset, but also, as you said, like it was incremental. That's important to hear. That makes sense to me, Jaime, energetically. I've seen it in my own, as I'm expanding in my business, like we expand as much as we're allowing ourselves to.
Exactly.
I'm guessing you do a lot around that because say more.
Yes. So it's funny. In business, and I can say I used to do this too. So in business, when you are not fully committed, commitment is also a huge piece of it that I just want to highlight, right? I joke that, commitment plus action equals money, right? Because it really, the commitment and that intention of going all in is actually quite rare, to tell you the truth. I remember when I first started in business, I had an iPhone app and I had all these things. I had a provisional patent. I was like, ooh, one of these are going to hit.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That is not how it works.
Really. Right. Like it didn't come out that way.
Yeah, once in a while, maybe, right? But because of that, we think that the path will be easier if we're on the right path. And I've coached, 7-figure CEOs, men and women, and there are so many obstacles. I joke that you're in like a box and there's walls and you have to climb up the wall. You run into one side and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to take a right because this is going to be easier. I'm going to go over here, right? Oh, there's another wall. You just keep running into these obstacles. And what you have to actually get good at is going over the obstacles, like getting through them instead of trying to shift paths, especially for newer entrepreneurs. It's like, well, can't be this one because that didn't work. It can't be this one, right? When in reality, I look at the millionaires, because we did a lot of data for the book. And I was trying to find out, like, if they had specific spiritual beliefs, if they had specific diets, it is all over the map for all of those. No statistically significant data for diet. Some people are like, I'm paleo. Other people are like, I eat whatever, whenever I want, entrepreneurial diet, which means like once a day, maybe, because we're so busy.
Right.
So there were just so many incongruencies. There wasn't one path, which is why it's like the path to be a millionaire. Dude, it's all over the place. And so because of that, though, it's the ability to keep pushing forward no matter what. So I joke to my kids, I love you no matter what, right? Are you committed to this no matter what? So no matter what story pops up in your head, no matter what pops up in business, because there's always, no matter where you're at, I mean, the reason why the people pay me is because there's obstacles at every freaking level, just different obstacles. And so as you move forward, the navigation of getting through obstacles, which is an inner game, like we talk about, right? Like there's so many pieces. I also say that if you look at the millionaires that I interviewed and we put one of them in your business, they wouldn't have half the problems you do, because most of the problems are, based on our patterns and our habits and how we think of things. And so if you could just put somebody else there and go, ooh, they would be able to own this really quickly, it's not the business idea. it's the person sitting in the driver's seat that's going to make the biggest difference.
So great. I was actually going to ask you, it's so great. It primes this question, which is, I was thinking there's got to be a belief system that you must see across the board, that with anyone that reaches 7 or 8 figures, or, you know, into billions, that has this, it's got to be. And I'm curious, like, and then no matter what, to me sounds like that's one of them. Are there any others that are like, oh, I'm definitely seeing this show up? This is what shows up with the 500 plus millionaire billionaires that you've met with and talked to.
So it's kind of funny because it's not only that. So yes, belief systems do make a big difference. We know it's the habitual patterns and what we're thinking, what we think we're capable of, that really makes a difference.
Yeah.
But some of the ones that I never thought, I love way too much introspection about like who these people are, right? Especially knowing a ton of them offline, off the interview, where they can actually open up. They have so many belief issues too. Like, it's not, you don't have to have all your belief systems figured out. Now, what I will say though, is that they are willing to work harder and potentially burn out, right? In order to hit, so they're sacrificing. And what you're probably saying is, I don't want to sacrifice though, in order to actually achieve that goal. Right. And you'll see that everywhere. You're like, oh, well, that person lost their family and lost their this and lost, I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right. Because they were able to push through. And some people have the money belief system and not the rest of the belief system. It's all sort of dependent on where we go. And it's a timing thing. So there is no one magic bullet of like, you must have this belief system and then you are great. You know, I wish it was like that. I'd be like, let's sort of put the matrix, put it in your head and then you're good.
Right. I love the matrix. Yeah. Right. Program for that.
Checking into your intuition, in my opinion now, and just to say one other thing, the thing that over the last few years have been even more, because I asked the same last question every single time.
Yeah, what is
and
that?
It's what's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million. Now, everybody knows that it's life first, but everybody wants the money anyway. So that's why I asked that question, right? And the most common answer, especially at the beginning, but in general, is that one thing on your list that you're scared of doing, go do that, right? It's the getting out of your comfort zone. Usually that's the shortcut. It's the thing you're avoiding. Right? Important, not urgent. It could be the intuitive hits that you're like, that's really hard. I don't know about that. And you push it off. I've done that before too. Right. But lately it's been, and I'm really impressed because there's no rhyme or reason. It's not like only the female entrepreneurs or only like a 70-year-old guy from Silicon Valley to, you know, the mom that has 2 kids that are both millionaires. They talk about their heart. And they talk about really leading into what they actually want and the vision side of that. And I remember being like, especially Jaime at the start of interviewing these millionaires, which was super data oriented. And then realizing, and I'm sure my questions have evolved after all of this time. So it is a little bit more heart open, but it's really impressive to see across the board. It's coming up more and more and more. Even I just interviewed, I usually batch them and do 4 or 5 in a row. And I had 3 say the exact same thing. I was like, oh, this is going to be back to back to back, where everybody's saying, listen to your heart and do what you're called to do. I was like, we are changing as a society. And, you know, I get really excited over that because I think we all need the money, because the person that we become, getting over our own crap, because I'm not going to swear on this, right, is what it takes to be the person that we need to be, to have the power, right, to have the influence, to actually have the people with integrity that care about other humans, to be in more of the driver's seats. And that's really what we're going for. And that's what I care about.
Amen. Amen to that. I'm like, you can swear a little. It's all right. I mean, we do a little. Sometimes we have an E, sometimes not. I'm like, it's totally fine. We'll just put an E with this one if we do. Tell everyone to put on their earmuffs if their kids are there.
Putting my mom mode on.
Yeah, right. No, I'm with you. I'm always like, my daughter's right here. Son probably can hear us. It's all good. I love what you just said. And it like, so my heart's like opening and just like, I have chills as you said that. I love that one of the common denominators. I love this. And I love when you're listening, as you're listening, because this is something I believe in, just like you. I mean, we're totally in the same page with this. And frankly, I think this is part of what our world is calling for now, is a shift to heart energy. And it's so true, Jaime. Money And this is something I think for women, I'm curious if you have thoughts on this. And I know you interview both. I've seen this where there's a lot of money issues for women, feeling worthy, feeling okay. It's one of the things I love about you is just comfort with that and talking about it and the worthiness piece, because when we have money, we are able to make choices where we put our money to support our organization programs that are pro-humanity, that are pro-heart, that are for, collective consciousness rising and raising. I'm with you. The more people that can be successful, that are big-hearted, we need everyone. We need you, if you're listening, we need you to be really, really, really successful and prosperous, because we need you to be out there. So I love what you're saying. And I love that the common denominator is that listening to your heart. And it sounds like maybe vision too, getting that visioning, you said as well.
That came up over and over and over again. And I know science needs to catch up with a lot of this stuff, in my opinion.
Yes.
I am a geek. So I'm like, got the parapsychology handbook and I'm looking at all the data and I'm trying, because I work with high level men, right? And like you said, and I don't have any statistically significant pieces, but when I look at the females, or the more feminine versus masculine, I know I'm a very masculine female in general, and I lived in my masculine for most of my life, and I'm spending a lot more time trying and working on being in the feminine a lot more. And so there's of course that comes along with it. But what I found is a lot of females, even when I'm working with the male partner, I work with a lot of people that are husband and wife. I work with a lot of different types of clients, and females have, what I've found, a different set point almost. They have a different safety net needed than men do. And so even if it's me chatting with the husband of the 7-figure business going, oh, she needs 6 months expenses in the bank, so that way you can do your risky whatever the heck it is that you want, right?
Yeah.
Or females in general, most of my female clients that are amazing are like, and safety net, right? And so that's totally great when you can actually self-identify and go, ooh, this is my number.
Yeah.
Instead of going, risk, because we're not men. And again, coming from my own piece, I'm like, I am quite risk averse. And I interview some guys where I'm like, oh my gosh, not in a million years, right? Would I do that?
Yeah.
But they're also pre-programmed from society to be like, and this is what you do, you provide and you are successful and achieve. And I have a lot of that with my masculinity also. But to sort of navigate that, and it doesn't, neither side is wrong or not wrong, but women, my clients, get caught in their head on so much more. And I joke, I was like, well, the men that pay me, I tell them what to do, they go do it. The women that I pay, not all of them, right? The women are like, well, maybe, I mean, and again, maybe it's because they're checking in with their intuition, but a lot of times it's because they're scared, right? And so the ones that have the ability to not just do what I say, because that's not what it's about. I want them to check in and I want it to be aligned, but a lot more, and I do this too. I'm a horrible person to coach, just so you know. I'm glad I never worked with you, because I would have been a pain in the butt. And I joke on anyone that I have coaches. I've had so many coaches and clients because I know too much. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I have data. Well, right? And
go
so
work with your left brain for I know trust me. I know your type.
And so exactly, right? And a lot of the females that I work with are very similar to me. And instead of doing, that doesn't work because I saw this and now this should be the new tactic that will work. It's like, just do the work. That's the speed of implementation. And this is also one thing that I very first do with every single one of my clients. It's the speed of implementation that matters most. So when we say do the thing out of your comfort zone, if you do in 1 hour 10 things out of your comfort zone versus somebody that does one, well, who's just going to get there faster?
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a logic. I had a client because John Lee Dumas was a client of mine, and we went to high school together, and he works his butt off. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I love him. Yeah.
Or not. Yeah. He was prom king. He was cool, and I was so not when we were in high school together. But I helped him start his podcast. And one of my clients, when he was sort of at the pinnacle of pieces of his success, he's been a millionaire that's been on my show now. And she's like, but look at him, look how much he's done. And I'm like, you have 2 kids. You're working maybe 10 hours a week on your business. He's working 60. How many of his weeks make up one, right? So she needs 6 weeks of her time. why are our expectations so disjointed, right? We put so much pressure on ourselves for some of that stuff. So logic can get us out of some of these things for sure. But to give ourselves some grace on that and be a lot more open. I know I preach it to my own self here because I know I can do that a lot better also, to be able to actually move forward in the way that you want and that feels congruent.
Well, I love that. I think also what I'm hearing you say, Jaime, too, is just get out of the comparison lane, like just get out of it. You know, you kind of, you know, the essence I'm getting, you know, leaning into your heart, but once you get the go ahead, like implement that as soon as you can. Don't, even if fear is there. I mean, that's something I'll tell you. I'm grateful for this aspect. I've noticed with myself as I'm definitely like I move quickly and I follow through because it's so passion driven. I'm so like mission driven, but I'll tell you, fear is there all the time. And I am not yet in the seven figure camp, but moving towards there. And I can see like with people that I've gotten to know that have really started to grow into that arena, it's like that ability to trust, even when there's fear, to trust your intuition, to trust yourself, listen to your heart. Like, I love what you're saying because this is doable. For women that are struggling with any kind of worthiness around money, I don't know if when you teach how to double and grow your, you know, your revenue and your profits, like, do you deal with that at all? I'm assuming there's got to be some mindset piece, like got to be.
Well, what's interesting is when I used to work, the book that I have is sort of the beginning stages. And so when I used to work with a lot of beginning stages entrepreneurs, there's a lot more of that. Once you've got to 6 and 7 figures, not that you've cleared it, because there's always chunks of it, but that's the beginning piece, right? So I say up to 100,000, it's sales and marketing, and you getting really, really good at sales and marketing.
Yeah.
But I also know my best friend, I remember she wanted to be a coach, and she had such worthiness issues and value driven. I have contingency plans on that I work with clients, like, okay, have a money back guarantee. I had to have that. I didn't think I was worth it either. My mentor made me do it. And I told everybody I will give you your money back completely, full refund if you're not happy for any reason whatsoever, which made me feel better about myself, right? And that way I knew that they were saying yes all the time. Right. So small things like that will help you sort of navigate around some of those chunks. So that way you get the feedback loop that like, oh, I am doing a good job. I personally needed a lot of reading my testimonials. I joke that testimonials are my gold, which they are, but they were also great for my self-worth, going like, oh, they said this, right? I need data. I need reasons. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's really important also. It doesn't have to be a only in your head mindset piece.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that'd be easier, quote unquote, but I like push a little and then I go, oh, look, they said this. I remember when I was on Yahoo's homepage the first time, I was like, that's never going to happen again. And 2 months later, it happened again. I was like, oh crap. Right.
Right.
I've been on 6 times now. The first 2 times my website went down because I was dumb. I never thought it was going to happen again. I didn't fix my website, right?
Oh, wow.
So silly the way we do this. And just to bring it back to my best friend, she couldn't get out of that worthiness especially for anybody that's becoming a coach. Your revenue is directly tied into your worthiness. Whereas now she's a real estate agent. She's had a $50,000 a month. And I was like, oh, you sell houses now. You don't sell yourself. Oh. Huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference. And so if you can learn, like becoming a coach or whatever it is based on your knowledge, it's so wrapped up. It's so wrapped up. If you were to learn sales and marketing from a product standpoint or for somebody else or whatever, you can get over a lot of those hurdles, because then you can sort of pull out oh, it's because I'm not worthy piece, which again, to me, takes data for me, because that was what I was the overachiever and didn't lean into my heart. But now knowing quite a few pieces, there's a great book that I'm recommending to all of my clients right now. It's very data driven. It's from a Stanford research called Positive Intelligence. And his first name's Shirzad, and I can't remember his last name. Have you ever heard of it?
I just heard of this, but I love the name of it. And we'll have that in the show notes. I love it.
So the reason why I care, and I make all of my clients do this, I was like, you should read the book, definitely. There's a TED Talk. But I make everybody take the quiz because, and I'm sure you've worked with this beforehand too, it's a lot of archetypal type things, but it's your saboteurs. So I have my clients rank their saboteurs. And I remember when I first did this, when it came out a while ago, my number one is restless. And so I like new and different and sword walls and costumes and crazy things, right? But I can't sit still. And there's feedback loops in my head. And the reason why I like the quiz so much is it goes through, this is what you're saying to yourself. This is why that's not true. Because there's assets, there's shadow sides and not, right? And then this is sort of what happened in your past to make that happen. And I'm like, so my number 1 is restless. My number 2 is pleaser. I know you had that on your thing too. Yeah. Pleaser, of course. A lot of females are pleasers. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's make everybody happy. And my number 3 is hyperachiever, because hyperachiever is also a saboteur, because you can't be happy until, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
But self-identifying, really important, but that self-awareness around the language, there's a lot of different modalities, of course, but for I joke, muggle clients, right? The ones that are not as woo-woo on that side. Yeah. They have something to grab into, because like books like Untethered Soul, which is amazing, that's like don't think, or Buddhist stuff, it's like don't think, it's like
how you do that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I remember when I first started meditating, I was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't turn off my brain. I would actually just write everything that came up, so that way I felt like I was getting it out. Yeah. And it was on paper, because I couldn't do it for a really long time, and it took a lot of practice. And so it's ever evolving as we go, but ideally knowing what those saboteurs and those voices are in your head and sort of separating yourself from them. Also therapy, coaches, all those fun things that will help you tune into that. But this book also, the book is actually about business and teams and how you're actually more productive and more effective if you're more positive. And so he calls it the positivity quotient. So I can usually swing it into my clients, because they're like, oh, 20% more effective for my team? Yes. And then we sort of dive into it's all between your ears, sir. I don't know what to tell you. Right?
That's awesome. This is really good. I've not heard of an assessment that looks at your saboteur. And I'm like, oh, the ones you said, definitely the hyperachiever and the pleaser. I'm like, those two are like a nightmare car crash. Those are like, and I've had adrenal fatigue. I've had not felt well. Like I believe my thyroid coming down and the autoimmune illness that I have, all in that land of those two together.
Yes. Yeah. They go like this. And there's hyper rational, which a lot of my male clients have. You're like, oh, you think being rational is about no, you're cutting yourself off for so many things. There's a stickler, there's a controller. It's really cool, especially for working with clients. I would love to see what yours are. I bet
I know. I'm going to take
it. I know. I want to see, but it ranks you as far as a percentage also. So I just did it. We're hiring right now, and I have them take this also. And her victim was 0. I was like, your victim is 0. How much work personal growth have you done?
Yeah. What have you done?
I like you. Right? It was very impressive.
That's awesome. And it was a female?
Yeah. And her pleaser was up there, which makes sense. But I was like, I like pleasers. That's good.
Yeah, that'll work. The victim, that's really, that we're like, that takes work. That's
a lot of work.
Yes. Amazing. Totally. I'm like, this is so unrelated, but I'm like, what astrological sign are you, Jaime? This has nothing to do, but I'm like, you got to tell me the restlessness. I have this.
Can I make you guess? Tell me.
Tell me. I have a thought, but I don't know.
I'm an Aquarius.
Okay.
Look at your face.
I love it.
Like, that's not what I thought.
Well, I had maybe because I feel like we're sisters, I'm a Sagittarius, which is very like, try this, try that. I'm like, you have that energy of, but Aquarius has a similar, like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to try that. And just
I'm Gemini moon and Libra rising also. Just, I'm all air. I'm nothing but air, which is
you are air. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. You do got a lot of air. I've got like no air. That's so funny. I've got mainly fire and water.
But we're the same. That's hilarious.
I know.
Good. You'll even me out a little. This will be great.
Yeah. I was like, no wonder. Yes. So cool. Sorry, you guys. I had to ask. So just taking a break. And if you want to let us know your sign, I mean, write in.
I just interviewed Rachel Rogers, who's absolutely amazing. And it's funny because she said she's also an Aquarius. Because I was like, wait, what sign are you? She's like, Aquarius. I'm like, me too. And then we were joking. And both of our kids' names, she has a son named Jet. And mine's named Jet too. We're like, all right, the audience doesn't care about this whatsoever. But this is amazing.
Oh my God, I love it. All I know is my favorite queen of all times, Oprah, is an Aquarius. So it's always actually my rising moon is Aquarius.
Really?
Yes. Oh. My rising moon. I'm sorry. Yes. or
makes
whatever the
sense.
moon. Yes,
Yeah.
that is the one air sign I have. The rest is not so much, but that's
All right,
okay.
that's where it is.
Yeah, I've got that. I can confirm later. This has just been so fun. Honestly, I'm like, I don't even want to end this. This has been I love the practicality, but I love that we've woven in also the piece of really connecting inner, that how important that is. And my last question would just be, so I usually end with is there anything that I didn't ask you? I call them heart flares. What's maybe on your heart that I didn't ask that you're just feeling like, you know what, I didn't say this yet, or this is coming up for me that I want to share with the audience? This will be your time to go in tune intuitively and just share what is on your heart, Jaime.
Okay, so what I've been navigating through right now, which has been extremely helpful, especially COVID times have been really interesting, right? Everybody's dealing
Yeah.
with a million times more than what they expected to deal with at once. And the good news is that I feel like our resiliency is growing and our
Yes.
capacity is growing, but oh my gosh, shit
Yeah.
show. Good, I swore.
Yeah,
So
it is a shit show.
So looking at that piece and what's been really helping me over the last year, as I told you, the kiddo's dad has stage 4 inoperable cancer, and dealing with death and going through sort of some of these things in COVID and all the rest of the stuff. I have listened to the book When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron probably 6 times on repeat, because grounding is really important to me, especially as an air sign, which I'd never believed in astrology beforehand, by the way. Like that was in the last 10 years also. I was like, that's dumb, right? I've come a long way. But it's sometimes hard to get out in nature. It's sometimes hard to take time to be able to do this. And so while I'm cleaning the house or whatever it is, I have that in my earbud, and it just the level of her voice grounds me in a second and really flips the script of me going, right, my humanness, and it allows me to go more, and again, in progress and learning, go into the negative emotions, being okay and accepting of where we are no matter what, which I had never done beforehand. When I was little, I thought, if I just have the happy emotions and no negative emotions, then I'll have a better life. And that did not work. And that was horrible. And to be able to navigate through it, especially for the overachievers, to be able to take it down a notch, especially to the pace that I'm usually at, which I'm sure all the people listening, their pace is probably more than most humans in life, especially the people that I work with is like that. And that's just been a huge tool in my toolkit that's been really helpful lately.
I am so, first of all, we're going to send love and light to your former husband. You said that is struggling. And also just, I love Pema Chodron so much. And I love that you, I love suggesting books, but I'm actually going to get that right after this interview. Cause I'm like, okay, that needs to go up there. I've heard now it's the third time, like, yep, third time, need to buy the book. But the grounding, especially now, I love Jaime. It's so cool about you. You're the left brain logic, data driven, and like the openness to be shifting. And what I'm getting is like, just really getting the fullness of it all, because you can still have the data driven, and then you can also have the zodiac fun, horoscope, astrology, grounding, meditation room with the tree and all that. And it's like fullness, like you really come to
my
fullness.
Weirdness all in one capsule, right? Somehow they all coexist, which is an amazing thing. I never thought it was a good thing, and now it's really amazing to be able to sort of go down either path. And again, growth, because I never let myself do that beforehand, and it was always there.
I just honor you. I love this reminder to ground, especially even if you're not an air sign and you're listening. I'm sorry, all of us human beings need to ground, but I love what you said, Jaime, and how that's helped you, and just who you are in the world and what you're doing and what you stand for. I know you have a huge heart and wanting to help as many people to be not just, I get successful, prosperous, but also to have that from within so that we can change what the heck is going on out there.
We need all the warriors in the wonderful way. Warrior is not a bad thing. It's not a fighting thing to me. It's a resiliency and getting back up after you get pushed down. I did martial arts for a long time, and the through line is very impressive. And so this is our time. This is really our time. That's what I believe anyway, because it gives me faith that we're going through this for a reason.
Well, I am with you. You are awesome. I'm so grateful for you today. I told you guys so much wisdom, so much goodness. You are just such a gift. Thank you so, so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.